Throughout this past year, I've discussed countless Dexter actors' lives, such as Desmond Harrington and Michael C. Hall. But perhaps the one actor I don't see talked about enough is Christian Camargo, who played the infamous Ice Truck Killer in Season 1. Now, despite being in only one season of the show, his impact has rippled throughout the entire Dexter universe, including sequels and spin-offs, which leaves me questioning, what the hell happened to Christian Camargo following this role that should have catapulted him into Hollywood fame? In an interview from 2010, Christian expresses what it was like for him following his role on Dexter and the unexpected struggles he had to endure.
There's one part in a successful show like Dexter comes along and you're instantly a star.
The downside of that was, for a while people saw me just as a serial killer, as a really creepy bad guy, and that's what led me to wanting to sort of go back to school, just doing some more theater,
However, despite being such an icon within television history, he continues to show time and time again just how humble and grateful he is to have been a part of Dexter's golden age, constantly reposting Brian Moser edits and edits of himself.
People ask me why I am growing a bunch of trees in the Mojave Desert. Just look at all of the amazing tools that I get to play with. I mean, that is a gardening tool.
Many have questioned why Christian Camargo disappeared after Dexter, but when you see what that role did to him and how deeply it affected his craft, his mindset, and his outlook, you'll realize he never vanished for fame. He walked away to protect his sanity and his art. Christian Camargo was born on July 7, 1971, making him 54 years old from the time I'm making this video. His actual birth name was Christian Minnick, and he was born to his father, Wendell Minnick, and his mother, Victoria Wyndham, who was an actress from years 1954 to 2007. Growing up on a small horse farm in Katona, New York, he began falling in love with car restoration, building a great enthusiasm for vehicles. His first ever car was a 1979 Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham, which I do have to say is a pretty cool first car to have. He would go on to attend an all-boys residential school where he would eventually discover his passion for theater following his graduation. Following that, he would go on to attend the quite prestigious Juilliard School of Arts, where he would go on to perform on Broadway and eventually travel to England to perform in many famous plays, where he would eventually come to meet his wife, Juliet Rylance. Now, something most people don't know about Christian is that his grandfather, Ralph Camargo, was a Mexican-American actor who once encouraged his daughters to adopt a more anglicized name, believing his Latino identity had cost him roles. Years later, Christian reversed that decision, changing his last name from Minnick to Camargo, as a way to honor his heritage and reconnect with his grandfather's legacy. Christian cited Ralph as an important figure in his life, saying, "My parents had a difficult divorce. My dad had to take a back seat for a few years and my grandfather came in. He was also my inspiration for becoming an actor. I really respected him." With his theatrical debut being in 1999, he would go on to star in films such as Harlem Aria, K-19 The Widowmaker, and more until he came across the role that would completely change his life as he knew it in 2006. When showrunners began casting auditions for the role of Brian Moser, they were looking for someone who could actually resemble Dexter's long-lost brother and embodied that eerie vibe of a psychopathic serial killer, one that's more terrifying than Dexter himself. And in his audition, casting directors could recall that Christian Camargo had this almost dark triad vibe to him when he read out the lines, and his looks clearly resembled a charming but internally dark person that could embody a terrifying villain if he wanted to. As for Camargo, he expressed that he was deeply attracted to the role of Brian Moser, mostly due to the fact that he likes putting himself in these complex, twisted characters' shoes, and saw it as a challenge that he wanted to take on. They needed someone magnetic enough to mirror Michael C. Hall's energy, yet disturbing enough to embody pure chaos under the surface. Initially, actor Jeremy Renner was approached for the part, but he turned it down due to scheduling conflicts. That one decision opened the door for Christian Camargo, and it changed everything. Camargo wasn't your typical Hollywood actor at the time. He didn't have blockbuster credentials or a household name. What he did have was a level of discipline and emotional intelligence that most casting directors rarely see. When he stepped into that audition room, his performance wasn't loud or exaggerated. It was quiet, unsettlingly quiet. He spoke with a calm intensity that made every line feel like a threat disguised as kindness. One of the producers reportedly said that that Christian had the kind of face that could convince you he's your friend while he's planning your murder. That balance of warmth and danger was exactly what Dexter needed. Brian Moser, after all, wasn't meant to be a typical villain. He was the mirror to Dexter's soul, the one person who truly understood him. Camargo instinctively played that duality to perfection. His scenes weren't just frightening, they were tragic and almost poetic. You could tell he wasn't just performing, he was exploring the psychology behind the monster. For Christian, the appeal wasn't fame or recognition. He's admitted that he's drawn to characters that challenge him mentally, those morally gray roles where empathy and evil blur together. Playing Brian Moser wasn't just a job, it was an experiment in understanding darkness, and that's what made his performance unforgettable. Once Dexter aired in 2006, audiences were immediately hooked. The Ice Truck Killer storyline was haunting, brilliant, and unpredictable. By the time Brian's true identity was revealed, fans were obsessed. Critics praised Christian's ability to make the character terrifying yet strangely sympathetic. Outlets like TV Guide and IGN later ranked Brian Moser as one of the best villains in modern television history, and Christian's performance was a huge reason why. But while the world was celebrating his success, the reality behind the scenes was more complicated. Camargo wasn't prepared for the level of fame that came with Dexter. He had always been a private person, someone who preferred the structure and focus of theater over the chaos of Hollywood. Suddenly, strangers recognized him on the street, often as the Ice Truck Killer rather than by his real name. In interviews, Christian opened up about how deeply the role affected him. He mentioned that living inside a character as dark and complex as Brian Moser took a psychological toll. It wasn't just acting, it was inhabiting someone who lived in constant pain masked by charm. After filming Wrapped, he admitted he needed time to decompress, saying in one interview that Dexter forced him to confront parts of himself he didn't expect to find. Instead of chasing bigger television roles or Hollywood blockbusters, Camargo went in the opposite direction. He returned to his first love, theater. He took on Shakespearean roles, performing in productions like Hamlet, Coriolanus, and As You Like It under directors such as Sam Mendes and Trevor Nunn. His performances earned him critical acclaim, including an Obie Award and a Drama League nomination. This move might seem surprising, but to Christian it made perfect sense. He wasn't running from success, he was redefining it. In theater, he could explore art without the distractions of celebrity culture. He once said he admired how theater forces you to be human again, a subtle nod to how Dexter temporarily stripped that away. In 2010, he returned to screen work in the Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn, playing Eleazar Denali. It was a stark contrast to the eerie world of Dexter, yet he brought the same quiet charisma to the role. In the years that followed, he continued to balance stage and screen, appearing in projects like Elementary, Haven, and the Netflix miniseries Wormwood. Each role seemed carefully chosen, not for fame, but for depth. But Camargo's creativity didn't stop at acting. In 2014, he made his directional debut with Days and Nights, a modern retelling of Chekhov's The Seagull. The film, produced by his then wife Julia Rylance, reflected his artistic DNA, introspective, emotional, and morally complex. Critics may have been divided, but for Christian, it was about creating something meaningful, not universally liked. I like making movies that people either love or hate, no in between. That mindset carried over to his next major project, The Last Manhunt. Originally cast as an actor in the film, Christian ended up taking over as director when Jason Momoa stepped down. Rather than let the project die, he pushed forward, determined to tell the story through a lens of authenticity and representation, focusing on the Native American communities at its heart. If the Native community likes it and they feel heard, that's all that matters, he explained in an interview, showing once again how far he's drifted from traditional Hollywood thinking. Outside of acting, Camargo has continued to live a life far removed from fame. He currently resides near Joshua Tree, California, spending much of his time restoring vintage cars and working on personal creative projects. In one interview, he said that if he wasn't an actor, he'd be restoring cars full-time, a passion that started back in his teenage years. He even founded a Brooklyn car shop called Fast Ashley's, which once inspired an MTV show called Fast Inc. For someone who could have easily ridden the wave of Dexter's popularity, Christian Camargo chose something far more difficult: peace over fame. While many of his co-stars stayed in Hollywood's orbit, he deliberately stepped away, following his own creative instincts instead of industry expectations. And yet, his connection to Dexter never really disappeared. Over the years, he's returned to the character of Brian Moser for brief cameos in Season 2, Season 6, and now again in Dexter Resurrection. It's almost poetic that after all this time, he's revisiting the same character who launched his career, but now from a completely different place in life. In a 2022 interview, Christian joked about his reputation for playing villains, saying, "It's so much fun. I love playing bad characters, complicated, dark individuals." That line perfectly captures his artistic philosophy. He doesn't shy away from darkness, famous, but he also doesn't let it consume him. Today, Christian Camargo stands as one of those rare actors who chose integrity over attention. He's not the loudest name in Hollywood, but to those who know his work, he's one of the most respected. From theater to film to directing, he's crafted a career defined not by fame, but by authenticity. And maybe that's what makes him so fascinating. While other actors chase the spotlight, Camargo quietly builds art that lasts. His role as Brian Moser might have broken him in some ways, but it also forged him into the kind of artist who doesn't need Hollywood's approval to know his worth. If you want to dive even deeper into these theories with exclusive videos, guaranteed replies, and your name featured at the end of every upload, you can become a channel member for just $2.99. It helps out a ton and keeps this content going. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and drop your own thoughts and theories in the comments down below. And if you want to keep the conversation going, hop into the Discord where we talk about all your favorite shows and media. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.